History has a way of hiding its best secrets. Just when you think you've mapped every corner of the ancient world, the sand shifts. A new story emerges. For years we've looked at the Giza Plateau at the Valley of the Kings and thought we understood the grand narrative of ancient Egypt. We had the pharaohs, the dynasties, the gods. We had the pyramids, those massive monuments to human ambition. But imagine finding a new chapter, a whole new book, really, buried far from the familiar landmarks. That's exactly what happened just a few months ago. A discovery so profound it sends a jolt through everything we thought we knew. It's a reminder that the past is never truly buried. It's just waiting for the right moment to speak again. This isn't just about finding another tomb or a few scattered artifacts. This is about a pyramid, a whole pyramid that nobody knew existed. Think about that for a second. In an age of satellite imagery and global positioning systems, something the size of a city block, made of millions of tons of stone, managed to stay hidden from human eyes for millennia. The location was brutal. We're talking about a part of the western desert that makes the Sahara look like a public park. The coordinates led the team to a place hundreds of miles from the nearest sign of civilization, a place where the sun beats down with an intensity that can crack stone. The dunes here are colossal, moving mountains of sand that have swallowed everything in their path for centuries. There were no ancient texts, no trade routes, no oases. It was, for all intents and purposes, the middle of nowhere, the perfect place to hide a secret for 4,000 years. Getting a full-scale expedition out there was a logistical nightmare of epic proportions. The journey itself was an expedition into the unknown. Convoys of rugged, all-terrain vehicles were loaded with everything from drilling equipment, life support systems, weeks' worth of water and food. The team, a hand-picked group of the world's best archaeologists, engineers, geologists, faced sandstorms that could strip paint from metal, and temperatures that soared well above 120 degrees Fahrenheit during the day. Every mile they traveled deeper into the desert was a mile further from help, a step further into a world that has remained untouched by human hands since the time of the pharaohs. How do you excavate a pyramid buried under 300 feet of compacted sand? You don't. Not with shovels. Not with brushes, anyway. The sheer scale of the task was monumental. Clearing that much sand would take decades, maybe even a century. The team needed a new plan, a way to tunnel down, to surgically enter the structure without disturbing the mountain of sand above it. The solution was something borrowed from the world of modern mining and engineering. They brought in a specialized boring machine, a massive drill designed to cut through rock, to carefully tunnel a shaft straight down towards the pyramid's outer casing. It was archaeology meets science fiction. The process was agonizingly slow and fraught with peril. The sand was unstable and the risk of collapse was constant. Engineers worked around the clock, reinforcing the shaft with interlocking steel rings as they descended. Every foot they drilled deeper was a journey further back in time. The team watched their monitors, which displayed the composition of the material they were drilling through. First it was just sand, centuries of it. Then, the sensors detected a change. Then, after weeks of drilling, the drill bit hit something solid, something that wasn't rock. The moment of entry is one I know well. It's a mix of pure adrenaline and profound reverence. Dr. Petrova was chosen to be the first to descend. Protective suit and oxygen pack close up. She was slowly lowered down the reinforced shaft. The rest of the team watched on a live video feed, their hearts in their throats. As she passed through the opening they had cut, her headlamp sliced through a darkness that was 4,500 years old. The air was perfectly still, the air was cold, the air was dry, the passage ahead was narrow. Its walls made of the same flawless limestone, unmarked by time or decay. It was as if it had been sealed only yesterday. The initial descent was a challenge of nerve as much as skill. The passage sloped downwards at a steep angle, just as in other pyramids of the Old Kingdom. But this one was different. It was pristine. There were no signs of tomb robbers, no graffiti from Roman soldiers, no graffiti from 19th century explorers. They were the first. Every footstep echoed in the profound silence. Petrova's voice, coming through the comm system, was a mix of scientific observation and pure unadulterated wonder. After navigating a labyrinth of passages and a series of clever but thankfully untriggered ancient booby traps, the team arrived at a massive stone door. It was sealed with plaster, a sign that what lay beyond was untouched. The seal itself was fascinating, bearing the cartouche of a pharaoh whose name was completely unknown to history. The name, as they would later translate it, was Aken-Ra, meaning the effective spirit of Ra. Carefully, painstakingly, they chipped away the ancient plaster and pushed. The heavy stone door swung inward on silent, perfectly balanced hinges. The beam of their lights pierced the darkness, and the entire team fell silent, struck with awe. They had found the main burial chamber. The room was vast, larger than Tutankhamun's. The first thing that hit them was the gold, a sea of it. Gold glinted from every surface. Golden chariots, golden thrones, hundreds of chests overflowing with intricate gold jewelry, collars, pectorals. But this wasn't just a treasure hoard. In the center of the chamber stood a massive, obsidian-like crystalline structure instead of a stone sarcophagus. It hummed with a low, barely perceptible energy, and a faint light seemed to emanate from within. It was both beautiful and deeply unsettling. Among the gold and the mysterious artifacts, the chamber was guarded by a host of statues, but these were not the stiff, formal figures we associate with Egyptian art. These statues were breathtakingly lifelike, carved from diorite and basalt, with a realism that rivaled the masters of the Renaissance. They depicted men and women with expressions of wisdom, curiosity, and even gentle amusement. The figures were dressed in robes that were finely detailed, but the style was subtly different from the familiar kilts and sheaths of the New Kingdom. It was as if they had discovered a photograph of people from a lost branch of the human family tree. At the head of the chamber, flanking the crystalline sarcophagus, stood two colossal statues. One was a man, presumably the pharaoh Aken-Ra. He was depicted not as a warrior god, but as a scholar. One hand held a stylus, the other a tablet covered in complex geometric patterns. His face was serene, thoughtful, with eyes that seemed to look right through you. The other statue was of a woman, an unknown queen or high priestess. She held a sphere that perfectly represented the earth, complete with continents that were shockingly, impossibly accurate for its time. Perhaps the most significant find was not made of gold or precious stone, but of simple clay. In a small adjoining chamber, racks of clay tablets were stacked from floor to ceiling, perfectly preserved in the dry, still air. It was a royal library. On a pedestal in the center of the room lay the key to it all, a single, large stele, a slab of black basalt under bright lights. Much like the famous Rosetta Stone, it was inscribed with 3 columns of text. The first was in the familiar hieroglyphs of the Old Kingdom, the second was in the unknown, more fluid script found on the passage walls. The third was a complete surprise, a complex, mathematical-based language. This new Rosetta Stone was the breakthrough of a lifetime. Dr. Petrova and her linguistics team immediately went to work. With the known hieroglyphs as their guide, they began the painstaking process of deciphering the 2 unknown scripts. The second script, they discovered, was a more advanced form of writing, an evolution of hieroglyphs. It was nuanced and capable of expressing complex, abstract ideas. It was the language of their philosophy, their poetry, their history. The third script was even more incredible. It was a form of binary code, a mathematical language used to record scientific data with absolute precision. So, why does any of this matter? We have our own challenges in the 21st century. We have our own technology. We have our own problems to solve. Why should we care about a long-dead king and his pyramid of secrets buried under the sand? The answer, I believe, lies in the nature of the discovery itself. The story of Aken-Ra's kingdom is not just about the past. It's a mirror reflecting our own potential and our own choices. It shows us that there has never been just one way to be human, or one path forward for civilization. There have always been alternatives, different roads that could have been taken. This discovery is a profound lesson in humility. It reminds us that for all our modern arrogance and for all our incredible technology, we are still just beginning to understand the depth and complexity of human history. We stand on the shoulders of giants, and some of those giants, we are now learning, were far taller than we ever imagined. In the end, this is why we explore. The expedition is never truly over.